So, today we're going to dive into one of history's most fascinating and, frankly, most contradictory characters, King Solomon.
When you think of Solomon, this is probably what comes to mind, right? The absolute model of wisdom. But, as we're about to see, the original text paints a picture that is way more complicated and, honestly, a lot more interesting right from the very beginning. Right from the get-go, in the first few verses of 1 Kings chapter 3, the story throws this massive contradiction at us. On the one hand, it says he loved the Lord, he followed the rules. But in the very same breath, we're told he made a sketchy political treaty with Egypt, married the Pharaoh's daughter, and was worshiping in places he absolutely should not have been. So, what are we supposed to make of this? It's the central question of this whole explainer. How can these two completely different portraits be of the same guy? How can a king be so faithful and so compromised all at the same time? To start digging into that, we've got to look at some of Solomon's earliest decisions. Moves that were, smart politically, but from a religious standpoint, pretty troubling. Now, marrying Pharaoh's daughter? From a purely political standpoint, this was a genius move. I mean, Egypt was the superpower of the day, so this alliance brought peace and stability. But, and this is a huge but, it was a massive spiritual no-no. God had made it crystal clear back in the book of Exodus, don't do this. He warned that these kinds of alliances would always lead to idolatry. So right from day one, Solomon is playing with fire. And then you've got these high places. So what's the big deal with them? Well, they started as shrines on mountains, but the term eventually just meant any old local shrine. The issue wasn't just where people were worshiping, it was the whole idea behind it. It kind of chopped God up into little local deities. You didn't just have one god, you had the god of this town and the god of that town, which made it super easy for pagan ideas to sneak their way into their worship. Okay, but before we judge Solomon too harshly, we have to understand the situation he walked into. And honestly, the religious life of the nation was a total mess. Just look at this timeline to see how bad things were. The Ark of the Covenant, the actual symbol of God's presence, had been treated like some kind of hot potato. It gets captured in battle, passed around by the Philistines because it's causing plagues, and when it finally gets back to Israel, it's just left in a field for 2 decades. It's just chaos. This is the spiritual vacuum Solomon inherits. And right when you're starting to think, okay, so this guy is just another compromised politician, the story completely flips on its head. We get to see a totally different Solomon, a moment of just pure humility. So ironically, it's at Gibeon, the most important of all these problematic high places, that God shows up, and he gives Solomon a blank check. He says, ask for whatever you want. Anything. I mean, can you even imagine? What would you ask for? Solomon's answer is, it's just incredible. He doesn't ask for money, or a long life, or for his enemies to be defeated. He asks for a listening heart. He asks for wisdom, not for his own glory, but so that he can serve and lead God's people well. It's just a beautiful moment of selfless humility. And in this prayer, he uses this really important Hebrew word to describe God, hesed. Now, this isn't just about being nice, it's an action word. It's about a passionate, loyal, undeserved kindness that someone in a position of power shows to someone beneath them. Think of a parent's love for their child. That's the character of God that Solomon is appealing to. And God is just blown away by this. He basically says, wow, because you didn't ask for all that selfish stuff, not only will I give you the wisdom you asked for, but I'm going to throw in all the things you didn't ask for. Riches, honor, and if you stick with me, a long life too. It's this perfect example of the idea that you just can't outgive God. And it doesn't take long at all for Solomon to get a chance to put this incredible, God-given gift into practice, in maybe one of the most famous court cases of all time. Okay, so picture this. 2 women come before the king. They live together, they both just had babies, but one of the babies died. Now they're both claiming the one living baby is theirs, and there are no witnesses, no evidence, nothing. I mean, really, how on earth are you supposed to solve that? It's one person's word against another. It seems completely impossible to know who's telling the truth. And what Solomon does next is, it's completely out of left field. He just says, bring me a sword, we'll cut the living child in 2 and give half to each of them. It sounds absolutely brutal, but it's actually this incredibly clever trap designed to reveal the truth, not from facts, but from the heart. And boom, the trap is sprung. It works like a charm. The fake mother, who's motivated by just wanting to possess something, says, "Yeah, great. If I can't have him, neither can you. Chop him up." But the real mother, driven by love, just screams out, "No, please, just give the baby to her. Don't kill him." Solomon's wisdom wasn't about knowing things, it was about understanding people. Well, the answer was suddenly crystal clear, and you better believe that when the rest of Israel heard this story, they were in total awe. They knew that the wisdom of God was really with him. So, where does this leave us? We've seen these two totally different sides of the same man, and bringing them together reveals the real takeaway from his story. Which brings us right back to our original question, doesn't it? So who was he? Was he the savvy politician making treaties and compromises, or was he the humble servant asking God for a listening heart? And the answer that the text seems to give us is, fascinatingly, yes. He was both, at the same time. His amazing moments of faith and wisdom were real, but they didn't just erase his failures. And his compromises were real, and they tainted his successes. The two were all tangled up together in this one person. There's this great line from a scholar that just nails it. He says a germ was planted at the very beginning of Solomon's reign. Those seemingly small choices, marrying that princess, letting the high places continue, they were like tiny seeds that would, in the end, grow up to bear this tragic fruit that would bring the whole kingdom down. And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? Solomon's story isn't just some ancient tale. It's a mirror for our own lives. It forces us to stop and ask, what are the small compromises, the little exceptions we're making today that could be the very germs that grow up to shape our entire legacy tomorrow?